there is all kinds of activities going on at our various levels of being that we take ourselves to be normally. So there is the physical, biological functioning of the body, and there is thoughts and feelings. And normally, the conditioning we have is to take that as me, is to associate a sense of identity, a persistent identity with these activities, and consider that to be I. So, that is the core conditioning that is there in every society, in every culture, and language also. Every language is constructed in this way. So, when we say the word I, me, it gives the sense that there is a single consistent entity, whether we call it the ego or the self or whatever term one uses. There is this illusion of a persistent entity, individual entity, which is separate from other individuals. And so that illusion, whether it's an illusion first, we can look into that, and what is there in reality. This is the essence of inquiry. So when we look into our activities, we see that first of all, at the unconscious, subconscious level, so many activities go on, which we don't actually say that we are doing. We don't say that I am digesting the food. We don't say that I am making the blood circulate in my body, and so on. There are so many, literally millions of functions done by billions of cells in the body. So all of that make up the body. And then there is the conscious activities of the body at the level of thought and feelings. Feelings are nothing but thoughts. They are all essentially just thoughts of various kinds. It is said that there is neural activity in all parts of the body, and they manifest as feelings and emotions and thoughts and all the rest. It's essentially just neurological activity. And those activities we claim to be me because that's how we can communicate, that's how we use language. So we say, I am thinking, I am feeling this, I am doing this, and so on. But if we really look into this carefully, we notice that, and this requires us to be very perceptive to notice that every activity, the I that comes with the activity is unique to that activity. So when we have a thought and there is a thinker of the thinker and the thought are intimately related. The thinker is in fact just an image that is associated with the thought. So when there is a thought about work, the thinker is the image of the employee or the business owner or whatever the role is. And then when there is another thought about a relationship, let's say a child or anyone, then the image of the thinker immediately is that of the parent or whatever the relation is. And therefore, every thought and correspondingly every feeling, every emotion comes with the subject and the object, and the subject is intimately related to the object. In fact, they come together. And it happens with every single thought that rises, every word we speak, and therefore every action we do too. So when we engage in a particular action, there is the sense of doing the action, and the sense with which we do that action as the doer is unique to that action. So if we are driving a car, there is the program of how to drive the car that is there in our memory that comes up and we drive. If we are working on the computer, writing code or something, then a different set of memories and images come forth through which we operate that particular task. So if you really look at it, then every task has its own both activity and the doer of the activity. And they're all different programs, different images in our memory which are coming up. So when we recognize this first, then we see, is there anything, or what is the source of all of this from which all of these are coming forth? If we look at it, then we notice that there is a certain power or energy that is there that makes all this happen. So just as the energy that is there at the physical level that makes digestion happen, that makes the livers function, the kidneys function, all of that is happening through an energy that is pervading the whole body. And it is the same energy that is making the brain function, making therefore thoughts happen, making memories to be accessed, making speech happen, and all the rest. So there is this energy that is pervading the whole body, that is making us function at all levels. So if we recognize this, then this energy is impersonal in nature because it is pervading all aspects of our existence. And furthermore, we see that the same energy is what makes everyone else function as well. It is not that the energy or the intelligence with which the cells function, the neurons function, all of that is different. The content is different. The content of the body is different. Each body is different. Each brain is different. But the energy with which the bodies function, it's like how the same power supply can power different instruments. Each instrument is unique, but the power supply is common. Similarly, the energy which animates all the bodies of all humans, and not just humans, but all animals, all the way up to even single cell organisms, it's all the same energy. And that energy expresses in all these unique ways through literally infinite beings of various kinds. So if we inquire thus carefully, we recognize that what we are at the manifest level is this energy. This energy is what makes anything function. And then if we look into what is the source of this energy, what is the ground from which this energy comes forth, we recognize that there is the field of consciousness on which from which this energy comes forth, and that field of consciousness is again only one. There is no division in consciousness. Consciousness is one field, and that field of consciousness comes forth as energy that makes this dance of the universe possible. So if we see this clearly, then we understand the source of our being as this pure consciousness, which is the ground, and the energy that comes forth from consciousness. So this is why we have many different ways in which this is represented. One of the ways is Brahman and Maya, as it is called in some of the Vedantic scriptures. Brahman is pure consciousness, and Maya is the energy that manifests the universe. In Gita, it is called as Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the pure being, and Prakriti is the energy, or it is also known as Shiva and Shakti. Again, the same principle. Shiva is pure consciousness and Shakti is the energy. So it's normally, as we can see, or for those who know Sanskrit, that the consciousness is given a masculine term and the energy is given a feminine term, because consciousness is still and the energy is flowing gracefully, and therefore that's just a nice symbolism of the masculine and the feminine consciousness and its energy. So that's the essence of the whole play of the universe. So all of us at the manifest level are an expression of this energy, and at the very base of it is only this pure consciousness. And so if we recognize this through inquiry, we don't have to believe anything for this. We don't have to accept anything. We can start from where we are. That is why it's always important to start from where we are right now and go dig deeper and reach the source, rather than start from the source as some might do, because then that becomes an article of faith or theory or speculation. So we can simply start from where we are, because if there is truth, it has to be operating here and now. It cannot be away from here and now. So this is the essence of inquiry into our own being, which requires no faith, but only sincerity and careful attention, alertness. So if we do this, then we are able to recognize all of this, and then we see how all the problems of our being come forth only through non-recognition of this truth. So when we look at any so-called psychological problems, which is what predominantly causes so many issues especially among humans, whether it's greed, comparison, envy, anger, covetousness, inferiority, superiority, pride, guilt. All of this comes forth because of the core delusion of separate individual identification. So when we do not recognize the truth of this all pervading energy, and we think we are an individual with some so called talents and gifts and whatever, so we take ownership of this as me, then we compare, and in comparison, we of course feel either superior or inferior, proud or guilty, and all the rest. So, physically, there is a movement of time through which many things happen, and sometimes it can bring hardships like diseases or sickness or death, even all the rest, and that's a natural movement of time. But the overlay of suffering that comes because of this attachment and identification is what causes, from small domestic issues all the way to international wars, identification with religion, identification with nationality, identification with race, all the rest. It stems from the core identification with I. So when we recognize this, it is not some theoretical understanding, but it is at the very root of all problems that human society faces. So if we recognize this, then we can first of all be free of this, and then also shine the light on this truth, simple truth. So the truth is very simple, but the simplicity doesn't mean it's easy. That which is simple is not necessarily easy, because the conditioning of culture, of language is so strong that every child learns this by default, and therefore to unlearn is what is the most difficult. Even though it's simple, it seems difficult, and therefore we have to be very alert, first of all, to unlearn. And this unlearning can happen only now. So each moment when we are alert, we can see how the false identification rises and thereby be free of it. And the more we are free of it, the more we are not caught in the web of me, the more we can let this energy flow freely. Then we can continue with all the activities and do them actually perfectly, because there is no false interloper as the doer, wanting to claim credit, afraid of the result, and all the rest. There is only the doing. And this is the essence of course, Gita as well, where Krishna tells Arjuna, just do the work and do not worry about who's the doer, what are the results. And when all those worries go away, then the doing becomes, in fact, perfect. The full attention is on the doing, not on the doer. And thereby, the doing itself is an expression of the freedom of being. And that's the essence of this whole wisdom. So, any questions or comments, please feel free to bring up. But this is the essence of the whole pointer, which is most ancient and yet most new, because there's nothing new in the sense of not known before, or something that is the something that is new in the sense of not being revealed before, but at the same time it is new in the sense of being fresh. It's like how every sunrise is new, even though it's the same sun coming up. Similarly, this wisdom is always fresh. And if we listen to it like we watch a sunrise with a fresh set of eyes, then we can relate to it and see the truth of it now. Many of the terms we have in language again creates this sense of time and goal and reaching something, attaining something, all the rest. So as we said, when we are, let's say, sitting even in silent meditation, and the same thing can be done even while engaging in any activity. When thoughts rise, there is the normal conditioning to identify with the thoughts as my thoughts, and then go with the thought through that identification, chasing the thought like it is said, like a dog chases a car. We keep running behind it. So when we simply observe that thought is rising and it is not my thought, that is the core delusion we have. So when we recognize that thought is rising, and that requires us to be attentive, because if we are not attentive, then the unconscious pattern of identifying with the thought kicks in instantly, and then we run behind the thought and we go through the same pattern. And in fact, it is said that everyone thinks pretty much the same thoughts over and over. It's like a set of thoughts that comes repeatedly, and we get caught in those thoughts because of unconscious identification. So if you are conscious and alert at the moment thought rises, then we can just see that the thought rises without identifying with it. And in that alert seeing is, we can call it as witnessing, we can call it as awareness, whatever term we use. There is just the alert seeing of the thought rising. And when we see the thought rising alertly, then all there is just the thought. And then the thought falls in its own right place. If the thought requires a response, then it can be responded to. But if the thought is just some pattern that is not needing any response, then it can be simply left to just go away. So the thought has its own response that comes when there is a clear seeing of the thought. And the same is true while doing any action. While I am engaging in action, if there is full attention to the action, then there is no division. But when there is division and there is thought about what will happen, something about thought always comes in the form of time. So it will be like, what will happen if this doesn't go well, or what do they think of me, or any number of ways in which thoughts operate, through fear, through pride, through guilt, through comparison, all of this. Then all those thoughts, when we are alert, we see the thought rising and we see the frivolousness of that thought, and it instantly goes away. But when there is a thought which requires response, let's say a memory comes forth and says, there is something important that I have to do right now, then that thought needs to be attended to. So the important point is to be aware and alert. That's all. If you are alert, then we don't have to attain anything. Being alert is the way and the means and the end. If you are simply alert and present, then we are not identified with thought. And that's a that's not a destination to be reached. It's a living active presence. So it is like, if this moment I am present, it doesn't mean the next moment I'll automatically be present. The same unconscious pattern will kick in if you are not alert. So you have to constantly be alert and present. And that's all it is. It's not a question of, therefore, I'm not there or I'm there. I will get there. So all of these are projections of thought. It projects an idea of enlightenment and then says, I'll be enlightened one day. I'll be realized one day. All of these are again ways in which thought creates image. It has an image of an enlightened being, and then it says, I'm not that image, I'll get there. And in that very goal of getting there, it sustains itself. The separation is sustained. So all of these have to be seen clearly and dropped. There is no getting there. There is nobody enlightened. There is only the state of enlightenment. And that is here and now. So when we recognize this, then we are in this space now. And those whom we call enlightened, or jnani, or whatever term we use, are simply only present every moment in this way. So if we make them into an ideal for us to reach in the future, then we miss the whole point. They are only pointing to this beingness that is here and now. So we have to, therefore, not fall into the trap of making this into an ideal to be reached, into a goal to be attained, but simply, how am I functioning right now? That's the only question that matters. Am I caught in the ego, or am I present? Am I completely present to this moment without being caught in past images and all the rest, but fully present? So if I am fully present this moment, then I am in touch with truth. In fact, that is truth. And it can cover up again if ego comes. It's like how the sun can shine one moment, and the next moment cloud can again come and cover the sun. So the sun is not something to be reached. When we say the sun is out, in reality, all we mean is the cloud is gone. The sun is always there. So similarly, the cloud of our confusion, our unconscious pattern, is what covers up the sun of our being. So our sadhana, if you want to call it, is simply to not get caught in these clouds. And the clouds are always there. They come, they go. So we have to be very alert. And when we are alert, we shine as the sun. When we are not alert, the clouds cover us up. So Therefore, it's not a goal in time. It's a goal now. If there is, the only goal is right now.